Hey, Amie,
Yeah, Juan.
give me that beat.
It's Baseball Shangri-La with Amie Cuevas and Juan Ramirez.
What's up, party people? She is Amie Cuevas. I am Juan Ramirez. You are listening or watching Baseball Shangri-La. If you are listening to us on the audio portion, please make sure you're subscribed to the podcast. Rate us, write us a review, help spread the word. That's your homework assignment. Let other people know about Baseball Shangri-La. If you are watching us on YouTube, make sure you're subscribed to our YouTube channel. Hit that notification button. Give us a thumbs up. Leave us comments. We love engaging with you. And most importantly, make sure you're following us on social media on X at BB Shangri-La, on Instagram, YouTube, and Twitch at Baseball Shangri-La. Amie, ¿cómo estás?
Just want to give everybody kind of a PSA. There is not a gong outside. We don't have Quasimodo outside of my studio. My neighbor has just decided to start cleaning the steps, and the broom keeps hitting the wrought iron. So if you hear that, sorry.
So whoever had Quasimodo reference on your bingo card, congratulations to you. The bells, sanctuary. How was your weekend, Amie?
It was good. Did you watch any movies this weekend? I did.
I did see some movies this weekend. You know what? I'm glad you brought that up because have you heard of the app Letterboxd?
Uh, Bless you, Godzilla.
Letterboxd. Have you ever heard of it?
No.
So this app's been around for ages, right? And it's basically you get to like track like the movies you've seen, you can rate them, write a review, and then other people follow you, and so it's a way of discovering movies.
So it's
So
like Goodreads for movies.
is that how Goodreads works? Because
I don't
I'm
know.
not.
I don't use it, but some of the gals that I trade books with at the brewery do. So I'm assuming.
So I go to the Frida Cinema. That's my cinema, and so they always do an ad for Letterboxd, right? And I always say to myself, "Oh, I should join. I should join." And I decided to do it. Right? I finally joined, and sure, because I had seen, I went to go see The Last Showgirl. Are you familiar with that?
Is that Elizabeth? What is it? The gal from Saved by the Bell?
Wow. You know what? I'm going to tell you right now. My compadre, loyal listener, I'm sure my compadre got a real kick out of the fact that you confused Showgirls with Elizabeth Berkley to Pamela Anderson's new movie, The Last Showgirl.
Okay. Well, it could be a sequel. I went and saw a sequel this last week. I don't know.
Yeah, and
Maybe
I
this is
want
the last one.
so The Last Showgirl is an independent film starring Pamela Anderson. Actually, Pamela Anderson's been getting some recognition for her performance in this film. She was nominated for a Golden Globe, and she just this past week got nominated for a SAG. And I will say this: she's actually really good in the movie. I think though there are certain actors that sometimes it's a matter of whether the role works for them. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say she's Meryl Streep or anything like that, but I think the role was perfectly suited for her, and the stuff that it almost feels a little bit autobiographical. So I think her backstory, her life, brings a lot to her performance, and I enjoyed it. So yeah, The Last Showgirl, for if anybody is a fan of independent film, I recommend it. What did you see, Amie?
Oh, well, escapism. So I went and saw Den of Thieves too. So
I thought it had another, other than Pantera. I thought it had another
oh
title.
yeah, Den of Men.
Den of Men. Got it. Den of Men.
As me and my friend refer to it. Yes, Den of Thieves. It was pretty good.
All
I
right,
mean,
let's
if
bring out
it's
the thumb of judgment. What does the thumb of judgment have to say for Den of Men, Den of Thieves?
Den of Thieves Pantera. I give it a thumbs up. I mean, for if you're just trying, like I said, for a little escapism, it's definitely not Heat, but I mean, it's a decent movie. It was pretty good. I was entertained. I was entertained.
All right. So just to let you guys, let's pull back the curtain a little bit. Amie didn't bring up Heat just because she knows that it's my favorite movie of all time, and it is the greatest movie of all time.
I wouldn't say all time. It is a good movie. It's up there for me. I
How
do enjoy
dare
that movie.
you? How dare you?
Oh, Quasimodo is upset.
Sanctuary, the bells, the bells. So Amie brought it up because for those of you who have seen Den of Men or Den of Thieves, it is basically a blatant ripoff of Heat. And for that reason, I absolutely refuse to see it. So I never saw the first one, and I have no desire of seeing this second one. But Amie, just as good as the first one, better than the first one.
It was good, but in a different way. Like I mean, obviously same theme. I was impressed that they didn't just regurgitate the first movie over again. So it was pretty good.
Which is what most sequels do. So
Mhm. And worse at that too. So like, oh, the second time it comes up, what? No, thank you.
So those of you that have been with us for a long time, you guys know that on this show we talk Doyers, we talk baseball, and we love talking our movies. So that was our movie corner because we usually in between Amie and I feel like you're always posting that you're at the movies.
I have a Cinemark movie club pass or whatever you call it.
Oh, you got the one where you go every day? You can see a movie a day?
Oh, no. I think that's the AMC one. I don't have that one.
Oh.
I just have it's like $11.99 a month. And
Do you remember Movie Pass, Amie?
I had one.
Yeah, I
My
love
friend
Movie Pass.
we went and saw Den of Men.
I really think I'm the one that put Movie Pass out of business because
You and me both, because I lived there.
So did I. I went every day. I loved the Movie Pass. And what was so great is I was a Regal Club member, so I would earn points at the same time as I was using my Movie Pass. I totally felt like Adam Sandler in Punch Drunk Love when he was using the coupons to book a flight to Hawaii and be like, this is, I love Movie Pass. Too bad it went away. So, but actually, it is coming back. Yeah, it is back.
I don't trust it yet. I don't trust that we're not going to bankrupt it again. So I'm just sticking with my Cinemark movie club because I can count on it. My tickets roll over. I'm good. Speaking of movies, to kind of round that out, we didn't really have too many comments this week, but one of the ones that a couple of them shown about, New Year's Eve and whatnot, but at Simply Brandy 23, she watched Lord of the Rings over New Year's Eve. So, yeah, 5 p.m. to 5 a.m. And she forgot how good the series was. So one of these days we are going to kidnap Juan. We're going to don our elf cloaks and we're going to force him to watch all 11 hours of walking, and it's going to be glorious.
Nerds, all of you. You're all nerds. So I want to not a show of hands, but please leave it.
Can you see my one ring to rule them all?
Oh, wow. You need therapy.
So for those who can't see it, who aren't watching the YouTube channel, you guys might be streaming the podcast. I did get my one ring off of Etsy. So
nerd alert.
Oh yeah,
9 hours of walking.
All right. So anybody who's fast forwarded now past the movie buzz.
Well, no, look, I not a show of hands, but leave in the comments. I think probably the majority of the people who listen to this show that are loyal listeners are Team Amie, and they love their Lord of the Rings. I'm probably as the Prince of Darkness, as everyone refers to me. So, hey.
I mean, they do and they don't, but I mean, I know some people come here for baseball, and some people love that we do both. Some people are like, just get to the baseball.
So now that we're at the comments corner, I do want to one of the comments from a loyal listener, Anthony, who sent me a message based on our last episode saying, remind me to never offer your wife iced tea.
Good grief.
I think people did agree that I am a toxico. I think people are concerned about me and they're hoping that I get help. So
he just adjusted his mic. Let's kick this off, people.
How many games are you playing here? I just don't get it. I don't.
You did it earlier, but I didn't want to interrupt you in the middle of it.
Am I a joke to you people? Is that what this is?
Yeah.
You're all right. Well,
you're a clown.
I'm here to I'm a clown. I'm here to amuse you.
There you go. I set you up.
Thank you. I see what you did. You are very good. You did what you did. Yeah, very good. All right, so let's talk some baseball, ladies and gentlemen. Let's get that started with a pleasant good evening to you wherever you may be. Amie, look, I always say this on the show. We have the obligatory Roki Sasaki talk, but I don't know if it's obligatory anymore because
Because of the sweepstakes talk? My gosh.
well, at the time we are recording this, it is January 14th, and the earliest that he can sign is tomorrow, the 15th. And I don't know if you saw this, Amie. I know.
I did. No, I'm just
Okay,
kidding.
so
What is
let's
it?
start first because I know that you have a lot of pleasure discussing all the people who first were in the club and it seems now have been eliminated. So the floor is yours, madam.
I think when I texted you, it was like, let's talk about who's in the Sasaki club. And then it was like, hint, these are not part of that. Because we're seeing all of the tweets, the social media coming out, the articles from Athletic, LA Times, everybody's writing about this. So as far as we know, Philadelphia has been eliminated. San Francisco recently just got eliminated. Yesterday evening, the Cubs were told they were out. I saw reports about the Texas Rangers, New York Yankees, New York Mets all out. So they're not in contention. And it's basically been narrowed down to 3 teams: the Dodgers, the Padres, and the Toronto Blue Jays are the kind of the black horse coming into this.
And I want to give a shout out to one of our loyal listeners, Siamese Vodka, who sent me something right before we started recording. How great would it be if Roki Sasaki and Shohei Ohtani showed up to Dodgers practice with their souvenir Blue Jay gear that they got from when they took meetings with the Toronto Blue Jays? Look, Amie, for me,
Mind you, this is all coming from sources, which I love. Every article is like per source, source that could not be named. And it was like, who are you talking to? There was somebody who at least referenced Ken Rosenthal. And I was like, all right, well, at least we got somebody's name in there. But it was like, who are you guys talking to?
look, for me, wake me up when this happens.
100%.
Because I mean, I'm hoping. Do you think it's going to go because the last day is the 23rd? That's the window. So that would take us to next week.
He said he's going to decide by that closing of the 45-day posting
by the 23rd.
So it's not, I mean, if he announces it on the 15th, I think I would actually be shocked since it sounds like he's leaning more towards release it later. But again, we could be shocked. Maybe he just doesn't want people like bugging him the minute the clock strikes 12:01 a.m. So he did meet with San Diego over the weekend, and Musgrove, Machado, they were there. He met with Toronto last week. He's already met with the Dodgers, but as of the recording today on Tuesday the 14th, he was meeting with the Dodgers again today, and this was supposed to be a little bit more impactful because players were going to be there, and they weren't allowed in the first time around because of all of this handshake, wink, wink, nudge, nudge stuff, all the rumors that everybody, whether he signs with the Dodgers or not, that's going to be pervasive no matter what.
Well, that's what the cheeseman word on the street is. So they had their second meeting today. Look, drink.
Good call.
For me, I really don't do this on purpose, people. I really try not to.
That's why there's a drinking game. If you did it on purpose, that would just be sabotage.
If they don't sign him, what are they going to do? Because here's the only thing. Here's the only impact. The Dodgers have not done any international signings. Like they are using.
Did you see we lost 2 already?
Yeah, they are using, but you can say the same thing about the show pots. Like they are putting all their eggs in one basket. So they clearly, it's either, to steal a reference that you might understand, it's one ring to rule them all, right? It is all they want is Sasaki, in terms of their international signings. So if
Can you blame them?
I don't know because I still think this is a wild card. The way people talk about Roki Sasaki, people feel like it's a done deal that this guy's going to be a star in Major League Baseball. He's extremely young, and look, he may end up being a star. All I'm saying, I'm probably going to get clipped for this, and then all the haters are going to come out and be like, "Look at this guy."
Heaven forbid you have an opinion that might actually change later. God.
I mean, look, Yamamoto was good. He was really good. Was he the Cy Young Award winner that some people were talking about? And I get it. His injury played a huge part in his season last year. All
For
I'm
all the
saying,
reasons that we talked about, though, the transition from one league to another is no easy feat, and you're doing it again internationally. So you're coming to a whole new country and making that adjustment. I I just I I think it's worth it if they get him. If they don't, I mean, what are the odds that all of the potential other players in the international signing are all going to be scooped up on the 15th? Could it happen? Maybe. I don't know. But, it's not like they don't have other options.
exactly. And so, yeah, I agree with you. I think it is definitely worth it. If they don't sign him, I'm not going to be heartbroken by it. I don't think the Dodgers are also, behind the eight ball. What are you laughing at?
You're being so mature about this.
See?
You're so even keel. I'm impressed.
Well, because the thing is, for me, I guess that's what it is just like the Dodgers, I feel, are so well rounded. But for me, it's really, he's a 23-year-old kid who's very young, who has a lot of potential. But look, and it's, I don't
Oh,
want to mention any names.
oh,
Drake, I don't want to mention any names because then people are going to sit there and say, oh, you're comparing him to that person. So let me just say this. There are many players that I have seen that have a lot of potential. And whether it's realistic, those expectations that we put on these people, sometimes they don't meet that, right? And so that's why, like, I'm in one.
maybe y'all should just go put on a little movie called Moneyball and see what happens to Brad Pitt's character and all of the potential he had. Billy Bean. Like you're right. We don't know, but that's the gamble you take in baseball.
I think in terms of, I think why it's worth it is now because I'm thinking like a capitalist, is business wise for the Dodgers. This is going to, it just makes sense for the Dodgers to have Roki. They are not only so invested in Japan, but I think they are invested in Asia, that going out there and turning into Thanos and just collecting all the Infinity Stones is what the Dodgers are. That's the mode that they're in right now. So as a business sense, I totally understand why they're doing this.
There was actually a couple articles that reference that like Dave Roberts has been quoted as saying they're trying to turn Japan blue. There are other people that are saying that the Dodgers are still the favorite, even if they don't have as much money in their international signing pool, depending on what they free up, because they already know how to maximize endorsements, and that could offset the lower contract he's taking because he posted earlier than his 25th, his being 25 years old. So that exactly what you're saying are a lot of reasons that people think that could put the Dodgers still ahead in the running in that respect. And to your point earlier, the White Sox flipped Orlando Patino. He was an outfielder that we were going to sign with that international pool money when it opens tomorrow. They're offering him $570,000 over the 400,000 that we were committing to him. And then the Pirates are set to sign Dominican player Dorel Morel. And that's according to Baseball America. So two of the people that the Dodgers were going to sign, but now are kind of more focused on Roki at this point.
This is also something that I'm sure people have already had these conversations about, and we're gonna have this conversation if Roki chooses the Dodgers. You're gonna have 3 Japanese players that are used to pitching once a week. What is that going to do to your starting rotation? Now, I get that we're probably not going to see Shohei until May at the earliest. I think the Dodgers, have committed. They've said they're going to do a 6-man rotation. What is Roki? And then also, how soon are we going to see
I was
Roki?
just going to say, that's assuming he comes up as quick as.
Exactly. So that's why I'm saying it is going to be a conversation that I'm sure the Dodgers have thought about and have discussed, that what would happen if at one point in the season you have these 3 Japanese pitchers in the starting rotation at the same time, Shohei Yamamoto and Sasaki. What are you going to do then? Because for me, that sounds like you're probably going to get a bullpen game every week to give one of those guys an extra day, right?
I'm sure mathematically they can work it out. You got a pretty smart front office. They can figure out how to layer all of that stuff in there.
And it is, and I'm sure this is a non-issue. It is a non-issue because in the end, it's about winning. But how many times did we hear Walker Buehler complain during the season? He didn't like having that extra day. He didn't like. There's some pitchers that are used to their routines, and throwing them off their routines affects them. While on the other hand, you have other pitchers that would love that extra day.
Well,
That
and is
need
that is that a way where you, as you guys are staggering some of these pitchers, can you feed some of these other guys in a little bit sooner? A little, maybe somebody needs a little extra rest. Like, I'm sure there are ways that they can do that because we didn't always stick to the exact same schedule as we were going through. Like bullpen days got swapped around with other pitchers, so I'm sure they'll figure it out. I'm not worried.
No, I'm not worried either. And like I said, I think it is worth it to pursue him. Now, if he ends up picking the show pods, you're going to have, well, you're probably still going to have international signings, but you may not have the blue chips that you may have originally had gotten if you went after them. And look, for me, I know people will dismiss it because they'll sit there and go, well, Juan, you're the one who says trade everybody. And I was like, yeah, I do say trade, the farm to get established players, but you got to have them in your system in order to be able to trade them. And
But
if
there's
you don't,
gotta be some risk involved. Like you can't just have like a every situation be a win-win. Like you either go all in on Sasaki and hope it pays off, and if it doesn't, then you pick up the pieces and you move forward, or you're like, it's not worth the gamble, and then you just go sign the players that you were planning on signing anyway.
oh yeah,
So, some cases you can do both. In this case, it's kind of a little bit of either or.
I do think it's worth a gamble. I don't think it's actually that big of a risk, to tell you the truth. It's worth it. I just think it's just so funny to me that we just keep, and I get it. It's the off season. People need to find something to talk about, something to write about. But I just feel like this is such a non-story. I keep hearing these
Until he's signed, really. You and I
exactly.
are in the same boat. I just saw something, it was either I think it was an NFL post, but somebody was saying, like, somebody was complaining about the games yesterday or the game, and somebody was like, "We need to get sports back to where we celebrate and we're happy, and we don't just come here to, like, to complain or to bitch." And I was like, "God, it's not just baseball. It's not just football. Like, when did fandom shift into this place where like this is supposed to be our happy place, guys and gals?"
Well, I do want to ask you this because of the three teams that it's been narrowed down to, Santiago, the Doyers, and the Azulejos. It was interesting to see people make cases for each one of those teams. Obviously, with the Dodger, I'm going to save the Doyers for last. But for Santiago, the show pods, it's always like, well, Darvish is there, right? And then for the Azulejos, they keep bringing up the fact that there is a large Japanese community in Toronto, and maybe that might be appealing to Sasaki. Um, in the end, Amie, like, do you think any of that matters, or does it really just come down to how much you're going to pay me, and do I have a chance to win? Because there are so many people that, there's that, well, if he goes to a small market team, which cracks me up that the show pods are considered a small market team with the size of their payroll. I'm like, oh, okay, we're still treating the show pods like they're a small market team. Like, and the Azulejos, they also spend a lot of money, and Toronto is an international major city. We're gonna say the Azulejos are a small market team. Like, oh, I want to be the stud on that team. And if I go to the Doyers, I got to get in line. There's no way I'm going to be the star because there's so many. Does any of that matter?
Like we've talked about on other episodes, I think all of it matters, but it's unique to each player. Like you and I have talked about certain situations where I'm like, just give me a reasonable amount of money to play and I want to be happy. I want to be on a good team versus you throw a huge contract at me, but I'm at a team where I'm going to probably languish more than I'm going to excel. So for me, that's not beneficial. I would probably take more of the Teoscar route. There are other people that are like, no, I want to be paid like Juan Soto, and this is what I'm going to do. Some people, it's about, I think we heard the pitcher that we were supposed to get a couple years ago. Was it Rodriguez? I don't remember which one it was, but like he didn't want to leave because of his family. So there's going to be all kinds of
The
drivers.
Serpientes pitcher,
Was
Eduardo
it?
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And so everybody's going to have different reasons. There could also be cultural reasons that play into it, personal reasons. Like there's so much that goes into it, and it's such an individual choice, such a personal choice. I don't think you can just have a measuring stick that matches everybody.
The reason why I bring it up because I want to segue into Hyeseong Kim's press conference that he had in Korea, and they asked him why he signed with the Doyers, and why are you laughing at me?
He's so precious.
But he had basically referenced that the Doyers have an aura. So for me, I always thought players don't care about this. It's how much I'm getting paid and am I going to get playing time? That's what
I
matters.
mean this in the most loving way possible. I think that's naive that it's just about the payday. Like I think it does come down to, like culture, clubhouse, things like that. I think that plays into it. Obviously you want to get paid, but I think that's a big factor for a lot of people.
Is there anything else that you wanted to add about Hyeseong Kim's first appearance and talking about signing with the Doyers?
Just a couple of things. So he was flying in Korean time, so obviously a little earlier than us. So Tuesday he was going to be traveling to Phoenix. They want to get him stateside as soon as possible. So he did have his first media scrum before he boarded that flight. It was his first Korean media scrum since signing with LA, and there were just a lot of really just. He seems like a really nice guy. We haven't met him, gotten to talk to him yet, but basically that, the Dodgers were the first team to contact him after he got posted, and he was grateful and honored to be playing with the team that he grew up watching. And he just he said that Shohei would say hello to him in Korean, so he made an effort to learn Japanese greetings so that he could say hello to Shohei, and just he's already starting to kind of fit into this team. And just different things like he will be wearing the number 6. So if anybody hasn't seen that yet, he'll be using that number. He did wear the number 3 in the KBO, but that was taken obviously because CT3 has that. But he wanted a single digit number, and one of the last people who wore it, was Trey Turner. And so that was one of his favorite players. So he had a lot of really cool quotes about, just trying to be the best player that he can be. And he knows that he has to work to make the team too. It's not just with Gavin Lux being traded to the Reds. It's not just automatic that he's going to be there. So if you guys get a chance to look at some of those, I was looking at a journalist, Jihu Yu, who had posted a lot. So he had put a lot of those quotes out there. So it was just really nice to get to know him even through a social media filter.
And this is why I say that the Dodgers are in that business, and this is where it pays off. His words, the Dodgers have an aura. So if the Dodgers are out there dominating the whole Asian market, I think that makes a difference. Growing up, I know in Mexico, yes, in Mexico, they were fans of the Yankees. And why are they fans of the Yankees? Because the Yankees were always winning. The Yankees have an aura themselves, right? But there were whenever I went to Mexico as a kid, there were a lot of kids who were Doyer fans. And why were they Doyer fans? Because of Valenzuela. So what the Dodgers are doing now, when you go to Japan or you go to Korea, what did Hyeseong Kim say? Chan-ho Park and Hyunjin Ryu. Those were 2 specific names. Those are players he grew up watching. Those were Korean players that played for the Dodgers. So I totally get what the Dodgers are doing, and I think it's smart, and it's probably going to pay off for them because as much as people want to bring in this whole handshake deal, and people will say, well, the Dodgers have an unfair advantage. I don't know how unfair it is. They are investing in this. If you look back, when they built camps, baseball camps in the Dominican Republic, the Doyers were the ones doing that first, right? And then everybody else did.
Which is ironic because give me a team or give me a fan base where like, okay, so if your team was capable of doing this, would you be like, no, no, we shouldn't do this. We should not spend our money. Or are you going to be like, heck yeah, if we can be contenders and our ownership group is willing to pay, let's do that. Like I don't it's interesting when people turn the vitriol on the team that's actually spending when it's like, but if your team did that, would you be unhappy then? Is that what I'm hearing? And I doubt that's going to be the case. They're not going to tell their team to not spend. So it's always interesting to me. Since we were talking about the potential, the obligatory Roki Sasaki, sweepstakes, if you will, I did think it was interesting because Hyeseong Kim had mentioned he was asked about how it was doing the 30-day like negotiating period. And he said, I don't ever want to go back to that period. I could barely sleep at night, but I will probably look back on it fondly later. So it just made me think, like, I wonder if Roki's going through that too. He's got the whole like fan bases, media, teams breathing down his neck to make a choice right now. It's not even January 15th where that signing period has opened. Do you think he's feeling some of that? Or do you think, kind of to turn your question back around, do you think different players experience that in different ways? Some thrive on it, some hate it, some are nervous or anxious? Or do you like, what are your thoughts?
Well, I know you hate the what if game. I know you really do. But I'm assuming that the unicorn was in that meeting today with Roki.
Mm-hmm.
And if this is true, when the unicorn was first thinking of coming to Major League Baseball, the rumor was he wanted to sign with the Dodgers.
Mm-hmm.
At that time, there was no designated hitter in the National League, so he ended up going with the Angels. You saw what his career like. He had a great career with the Angels, right?
Mm-hmm.
But he didn't win until he got to the Dodgers.
He
So
didn't have his first postseason until he got to the Dodgers.
Exactly, Amy. So I'm sitting there thinking to myself, when you bring this up, I'm wondering if Shohei volunteers this to Roki and says to him, look, man, there's probably times that I sit there and I say to myself, what if? What
Mm.
if I would have come to the Dodgers from the beginning? Would I have 2 World Series championships under my, like, how many more times would I have been a champion? Because the unicorn said this to Andrew Friedman, and I know people think, oh, he was just kidding, but I don't know if he was just kidding. When the unicorn said to Friedman, he's like, in regards to the celebration, he's like, I want to do this 9 more times. Right. And it's like, I want to win every single time. And
Everything said in jest has a little bit of truth in it too, though.
yeah, kernel of truth. So I'm curious if the unicorn presents that to Roki and go, look, I get you have a relationship with Darvish, or you'll feel more comfortable playing in Toronto, but in the end, like, one, you don't realize, like, I'll say this, my poor daughter's in her senior year, right? The first year she played, the team was horrible, absolutely horrible. The next year, they won a championship. The next year, they won their division. They lost in the playoffs. It sucked, right? This year, it looks like it's going to be a really, really long season. Once you've already experienced winning and you're not doing that, especially for highly competitive people, I think psychologically that needs to do something to you. So I,
And player development. What does that look like for each team?
Yeah, so I get your point. I totally, that there are other factors and it's a combination of everything. And hearing what Hyeseong Kim said, if you're Roki, I I wonder. I think that's a really good question, Amy. I wonder if he, in the back of his head, is, I got to get this decision right, because if
Mhm.
I don't make this right decision, am I going to lose this opportunity? Because you don't know, by the time he's a free agent, he might not be able to do what the unicorn did and go,
Mhm.
all right, I'm finally going to sign with the team I wanted to sign with from the beginning. Right. So maybe you don't take things for granted and you go, look, I want to play for the Dodgers. I'm destined to play for the Dodgers. I should go to the Dodgers, right? Like, why am I messing around with the azulejos and the show pods, right? But I don't know if we're ever truly going to get the answer to that. At least not. Maybe once he's done playing and he'll come
Mhm.
back, and
When we
everybody's
get his
super honest.
autobiography.
Exactly. Everybody's honest once they're done playing. But I think that's a really good question, Amie. What do you do? Don't take it for granted. And if you have the opportunity, just take it. Just take it.
Like, winning is, I mean, it can't be, what is it? Winning isn't underrated.
Yeah, especially if this is the beginning of a run. If the Doyers are really going to do something really, really special. I mean, we saw what the Yankees did in the late 90s. And you look back, and since then, nothing has even come remotely close to what the Yankees did. So if the Dodgers can do something close to what the Yankees did in the late 90s, why wouldn't you want to be a part of that? I
Well,
mean,
and let's be
and
fair, the Dodgers are no slouches. They've been to the postseason X amount of times, but they've also been to the World Series quite a few times in the last decade, let alone all of the times they've been consecutively to the postseason.
And just to put it even to more perspective, Amie, did you see Gavin Lux's interview on MLB Network?
Yes.
I mean, was that not like the saddest Christmas ever?
Bless his heart. He was so gracious, though. Like,
He was putting on his best face to be like, yeah, I'm excited to go to Cincinnati. I'm excited to play for the Rojos.
well, I
And
mean, he to be fair, he's gonna get to play with Ellie De La Cruz, and he's gonna have different opportunities over there. But yeah, like he's been in this organization for a long time. It was I was very impressed with him. And as we have talked about before, especially in media scrums, you can get a player in any kind of mood on any specific day, and you get what you get. And he was just very gracious.
look, I feel on the outside he was doing everything right. He was saying the right things, but
Well, what is he supposed to say?
deep down inside, you know who I felt like he was? I Have you ever seen those pictures of Ben Affleck when he's smoking a cigarette outside, or he's in an interview and he's just like dozing off somewhere? That I felt like he had inner Ben Affleck going on, where it was just sadness. It
Well, I
was
think anybody's gonna have that. Like, we talk about it every so often, but like Miguel Vargas getting traded at the end of last year, like it can't feel good to go not just from an organ, like any top organization, but these guys who have gotten traded away, they love this team. Will they go play baseball for another team because that's what one they're here to do, and two, that's like they love the game. Absolutely. They understand that it's a business, but it doesn't mean that the decision sucks.
No,
So
absolutely. Did you see the picture last night? A bunch of Dodger players went to the Rams playoff game.
I think
Uh,
you sent it to me. Maybe either you or Philip sent it to me.
no, it was probably Philip. Because I didn't send it. I saw it. I didn't send
Ah,
it to you.
okay.
Um, but you're right. So I think this is a perfect segue in terms of how everybody wants to be on the team and those that get shipped out. Let's talk about arbitration, because the Dodgers, they had a lot of arbitration cases going on. Amie, you want to give us an
Less
update?
less than last year though, because I think we had like 9 or 10 last. I think we had 10 last year. There was only 5 this year that I saw.
5 that were resolved, or
4
or
of the 5 were resolved. So
okay,
unless,
all right. So
yeah,
it was a total 5. Okay,
because I think I'd have to go back to my notes at the beginning of this notebook. But so 4 of the 5 that were in arbitration. So Anthony Banda, he settled. They avoided arbitration. He agreed to 1 million. Brewster Gratterall, 2.8 million. Michael Kopech, the pitcher reliever, 5.2 million. And then Evan Phillips was 6.1 million. And then there was just one. No agreement was reached, so they're going to have a hearing. Alex Vesia filed for 2.35 million, and the Dodgers had offered 2.05. So there's about a $300,000 difference there.
which is fascinating to me, because this is courtesy of Jack Harris from the Los Angeles Times. The Dodgers haven't had an arbitration hearing in 5 years. I think that just goes to show you that this organization, it seemed like they have a good relationship with their players in terms of compensation. They were rewarding people to avoid that. I think is a big deal, because I think the arbitration process is so awkward,
Hmm.
because you're basically sending your top dog in the organization to make the case of why don't you deserve this money,
Right.
and yet you're performing. So I think it's a big deal. I think also Alex Vesia probably understands that this is business. Unless it takes a really nasty turn, I don't think it will impact their relationship. But I think there's always a risk when you do go to an arbitration hearing that you may damage a relationship between an organization and a player.
Now, do you think that there's a perspective? I mean, I hope that's not the case where it's like, okay, we have a difference of 300,000. We're not going to let this create any bad blood. Like, good for you thinking that you're worth this. We're countering with this and we'll go and see what the MLB or the arbitrator, decides. But I mean, don't you kind of got to give it to a player to shoot their shot though? Like,
Yeah,
or
no.
or is there bad blood because like, well, you shot your shot and now we've got to pony up another 300,000 because we did actually have 10 players last year in arbitration. They went
Oh
10 for
wow.
10 and settled it. Last year, Alex Vesia, he had 1 million. So he's going up for 2.35. So doubling it a little more. And I
Yeah,
mean, he was a pivotal piece, and to your point, he was one of the few left-handed relievers that we had.
I think there's a couple of factors here. I think the only reason that this will be bad is if the Dodgers like beat him and they embarrass him. Yeah,
You
that's
think they would do that though?
I don't think so. That's why. But
Like a crazy end zone dance celebration?
yeah, I don't think that would be the case. So that's why I don't foresee that this would impact their relationship. I do think, though, one of the things with this is, and I agree with you, I think every player should go out there and get their money, but he's also a reliever. It's not like he's an everyday player. It's not like now, while he plays a very important role
I was
on
just
this
gonna
team,
say, but Evan Phillips just got 6.1 and Michael Kopech 5.2.
and that's why I think Vesia has the right to ask for what he's asking compared to, like, again, his role in that bullpen and compared to what everybody else is getting. I don't think he's in the wrong at all. I'm more astonished about the fact that it's been 5 years since they've gone to arbitration with somebody. So
Mhm.
for on a year to year basis, the Dodgers seem to be on the same page with their players. So whenever a situation comes like that, like you just mentioned, I mean, how ridiculous, Amy? They went 10 for 10 last year.
Mhm.
You
Well,
know,
and luckily, I mean, I don't know if that's the right word to use, but it's only a difference of 300,000. So, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, at least it's not like a couple million difference
yeah, it does make
where
it does make me scratch my head where it's 300,000. Why are we pinching pennies all of a sudden, on this?
and is it more of like a friendly, like, I'm gonna shoot my shot. Let's see what the arbitrator says. And it's like, could I end up with 300 more thousand? Or, am I just gonna take your deal because it's not that far off and we all part as friends? Who knows? Who knows what weight we're putting on this versus what the players in the front office actually look at it as. Like, hey, go ahead, see what you can do. See what you can back
Yeah,
up.
and it also could be just something in terms of maybe there aren't any long-term plans for Alex Vesia with the Dodgers, and that's why the Dodgers are putting their foot down on this.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
uh, it and again, I don't think this is going to impact their relationship. If the
You're
Dodgers were that
breaking up.
Yeah, if the Dodgers were that concerned over it, I think they would give him the 300,000. But it again, for me, this is less about Alex Vesia and more about the fact that I'm more surprised that, wow, they didn't come to terms with,
That's
because
not the guy I would have picked as the holdout.
yeah, because it seems like for 5 years things have been running smoothly over there. So that to me was the only thing that really stood out about the whole arbitration process.
Yeah, I think the only other thing I saw like in the Dodgers chatter over the last week was as we saw Diego Cartaya got DFA'd. So on Thursday, the Dodgers acquired a minor league pitcher, Jose Vasquez from the Twins. So
Yeah,
he
one project for another project, ladies and gentlemen.
I
So
mean, at least it's a pitcher though. Uh he's a 20-year-old. He spent the last 2 seasons in the Dominican Summer League for the Twins. He played in 11 games total there. And I'm trying to see my notes here. He had a 5.2 win-loss record over the last 2 years, 8.05 ERA, 71 strikeouts, 57 innings pitched. That was over 2 years. Last year alone, he had lowered the ERA in the average down to 4.99. So,
and I get it. Every minor leaguer is a project. So for me to sit there and say it's a project, but he's also very, very young, and who knows? All I'm saying is it'll probably take some time.
can you imagine being 20 and being in the minor leagues? Like that was a lifetime ago. Like, good grief.
Good grief. All right, Amy. There were some announcements made. There's some important dates that are coming up. You wanna let us know about these important dates with the Doyers?
I'm going to send you a save the date card so you can put it on your fridge. So it was announced today that Dodgers pitchers and catchers will report on Tuesday, February 11th. So they're starting a little earlier because of the Tokyo games. And the first official full squad workout will be Saturday, February 15th. So the day after Valentine's Day. So for all of you who might be heading out to spring training, that is going to be from February 20th to March 11th. And then they will play one spring training game in Tokyo when they get there on March 15th, the Ides of March. And then they'll come back, play 3 games against the Angels, and then they'll have the Tokyo. No, actually, sorry, scratch that, reverse it. Willy Wonka reference. They'll have the Tokyo opening games March 18th and 19th, and they'll come back and play the Angels. First game will be at Dodger Stadium on March 23rd. The subsequent 2 games will be at Angel Stadium. And then we have the home opener on March 27th.
So there you have it. It looks a lot like last year. You have everything booked for spring training, so you will be at spring training this year, correct?
I mean, I might have booked it the day that they announced the schedule. So yeah. At this point, I'm just trying to negotiate down like rental cars, hotel rates, and stuff like that. See if they offer any discounts. But yeah, everything's booked.
No one could ever say you're not prepared.
I mean,
you don't leave anything for chance, do you?
no. I mean, depending on if I'm covering the team or if I'm going to be going to watch a game, I've got my tickets already too. So like, yeah, I'm ready to go.
Look, for a guy for the longest time who, by the way, drink, a
Ooh.
guy who was really not about spring training, because I was just like, why am I going to go spend all this time, all this money in spring training when I can use that money to buy tickets to go to games during the regular season?
I get that because it is not cheap. This is my vacation for the year.
And I finally caved, and I went to spring training. And I will say this: if you haven't done it, you should do it at least once. It is a really an enjoyable, especially if you like baseball. It is an enjoyable experience, especially that complex. You have all these baseball fields. You see players working out. You can see them walking through. A good amount of them give autographs. And then you can sit out there in the lawn if you get there early enough.
Fields are super accessible too. So like you can
Yeah.
still watch them all work out. You're not going to get up close and personal, but like the back side, I think it's the third base side on one field and the first base side on the other field. Like you are right there at the fence where they're warming up.
Yeah, so if you haven't done it, I think you should at least do it once in your life, especially if you are a baseball fan. So lucky for us, though, Amie is going to be there, so she will be giving us a spring training report this year. So that'll be good times there.
Yeah. Do you think it's ironic that the World Series winners share a complex with the team that had the most losses?
No, I don't, but it is so funny that, they do share that complex, ladies and gentlemen, with Las Medias Blancas. And I feel, I remember just the first time I went, even though I saw Medias Blancas emblems and so I looked at it as this is the Dodgers. Like you can go to the Medias Blancas side, but for me, I feel like that whole complex is just dominated by the Doyers, and it could be just because of the number of Doyer fans that really represent in spring training. Like they go over and they just take over Arizona. And
it's almost not just the fan experience like what you were talking about, but it's being there with like-minded, like brethren. Like you have to really love baseball, like to make the trip, like what you were saying, to spend the money to go to spring training. Like, sure, are there some casuals that love to go? Absolutely. But usually it's a lot more hardcore people. You're walking around, not just looking at the major leaguers, but you can walk to some of the backfields and see the minor leaguers, see who's up and coming. And it's kind of like a baseball, just, I don't want to call it a wet dream, but like a wonderland. That's a better word. I'm like, not the right word.
Wow. Ladies and gentlemen, that's my influence. All of a sudden, you would have thought, what is that Juan talking as Amie?
It's
No,
amazing how you can throw your voice.
exactly. I will say this though. I always like to go when I go to spring training, I like to go the first weekend. If you are one of those people, just
Oh,
be
see,
very
it's
patient.
packed that weekend.
Uh, you know what it is? It is packed, but I will say this, you just have to be patient because no matter how many years you do this, I always feel like the people who work at the stadium are just not prepared. It is just chaos. It takes so long to get in. Nothing works.
Even more so since Shohei and Yamamoto have joined the team.
Yeah. But again, like I said, I don't want to discourage anybody because I do feel as a baseball fan, you should go to spring training at least once in a lifetime. And that complex is a lot of fun. So
I love it.
that any other key dates before we move on?
No, we're still waiting to hear on like FanFest and stuff like that. So I'm sure that's going to be dropping any day now, much like the Roki Sasaki news. So we'll just be on hold for that. We'll wait with bated breath.
That's right. I want to talk. There was some news that broke. I
No,
think
no, I'm just kidding.
there was some news that broke just a few days ago, and that was about those famous fans in New York, the ones that were basically trying to pull Mookie into the stands.
The
Amie, you
ones
want
that
to
were guarding the wall.
guarding the wall? Do you want to give us an update on that?
Yeah, so the MLB has indefinitely banned them for interfering with Mookie Betts. So they are banned from any Major League Baseball game in any ballpark. That includes stadiums, offices, or other facilities, and any MLB sponsored events or anything associated with the MLB. Um, a lot of people, actually, let me give credit. The New York Post is the one who reported this first. You are hearing a lot of people like, well, what's that going to do? Like, they'll just have friends buy it, or like, you just go sit somewhere else. But what it comes down to is they are now subject to arrest if they are found in attendance. And this is all because of to quote the MLB, conduct that posed a serious risk to the health and safety of a player and went over the line of acceptable fan behavior. And because they were using the season tickets of the fan who held those seats, they'd actually had those seats since 1990. They're not going to ban that ticket holder because they weren't even in attendance. So they're not going to be revoked. But it is, if somebody points them out in a crowd, they have the potential to be arrested and then escorted off for trespassing.
I have a couple questions for you, Amie. I'm curious if maybe you have the answers.
I have all the answers.
The timing of this to me is very curious. Like, why now? Like, this feels like this was a decision that maybe I get it. Maybe don't make it by the end of the World Series, but
What's up,
maybe.
Curious George? What do you think should have happened?
Um, look, if you make this decision now and ban them, initially, I will say this. Initially, I thought it was a little bit of extreme. It was extreme to ban them.
I know
But
that's assault, brother.
yeah, and that's when you bring in logic. But I
Sorry, my bad.
but no, here's the thing though. It's like if this is the conclusion you came to now, what took so long?
What was the driver?
Like
Well,
were they doing investigations? Like did they find something else on them and that's why they decided because they
'cause
were going to let them in the next day, Amie, if there wasn't
Mhm.
a media hoopla
If they
about
hadn't gotten pressured.
exactly, like what changed? That's what I want to know.
Well, maybe it is either the media pressure, who knows if it's, Mookie coming out and saying, his true feelings about it and fans sounding off about that. I mean, I feel like aside from some of the people who just thought it was comical, which those are not my people. I think for the majority of baseball fans, like anytime you show that video to somebody, like because the edict just came down, I've been showing that video to a couple of the people at the brewery where I hang out, and they're just like, "Oh my God, I had no idea that that's what happened." And it's like that it was egregious. It wasn't just, in that was it the Cubs game years ago where the guy like kind of, you robbed the ball, messed up the game, fan interference. It's not like that where everybody's like frustrated and it changes the course of a game. They put hands on him, and not just one person, but two people. That's a big deal.
Look, the Bartman thing, I feel so bad for Bartman, because as much as people say that did change the course of the game, uh, ask any honest Cub fan, and they will tell you the error that Gonzalez made at shortstop, I think, was a bigger deal than what Bartman did. But it's
And that's
like,
the whole what if thing. Like maybe it's all weighted the same and it just sucks that it all compounded. But that's where,
before the Media Rojas won,
Mhm.
especially older Red Sox fan, I love talking to them about Bill Buckner because they are so compassionate towards Bill Buckner. Like, they don't blame Bill Buckner. Whenever I talk to a real old school Medias Rojas fan, they blame Rich Gedman and the pass ball that happened before Buckner. And it cracks me up. And it's like, these are people that know baseball, that watch baseball, that know, so that's why I get it, Amie. My thing is this. I just, the reason why I initially thought the ban was extreme is I'm one of those people that believes in redemption. I do believe that people deserve a second chance. They should be able to, show some level of contrition. So that's the reason why I was asking you if we
Have these guys showed any contrition?
well, and that's why the reason why I was asking you if we knew why all of a sudden this has changed, because if you came to the same conclusion that you could have easily could have come to right after it happened, I'm just curious if there was an investigation done and they found out that these guys have done more stuff. And that's
Ooh,
why they decided
maybe.
to ban them. And then the other question I have for you is, who is going to narc on them? Who, if these guys do show up into Yankee Stadium, who is going to, because if they do show up, they're probably going to show up dressed like Bobby Valentine with the Groucho Marx glasses and mustache. But let's just say someone does recognize them. Would you go to the Yankees and go, look, it's those guys that you banned, they shouldn't be here? Or would you look the other way?
For me, I think I don't know, because for me, until you're in that situation, you don't know. I could sit here and say, absolutely, I would say something. The reason for me, like why I potentially would narc, is I don't want that happening to another player. We are so fortunate that nothing tweaked in Mookie's wrist, that nothing happened to him and he was able to continue playing. That should not happen to another player. And if the potential is there for that to happen again, I don't think that's fair to another player, because I wouldn't want to live with that on my conscience of like, oh my gosh, I just saw them there. They're guarding this wall now, and look what happened to either our team, another player. Nobody should have to go through that. These guys work too hard to come up through the ranks of the minors to make it to the show, to have somebody, potentially impact their career that way.
So do you think that's really what it came down to? Because this was a lifetime ban, correct?
Yes,
Okay.
indefinitely banned.
So do you think that was done because Major League Baseball does not want to take the risk that these guys would do it again, and maybe next time they do it, it's not going to be no big deal. It would be catastrophic. It's what they do does have, like, a player does get injured.
I don't know that it's even necessarily for them per se. It's dissuading any other fan who thought that was a good idea from doing it, because we know there were a lot of, I don't want to break it up into casuals and diehard fans, but there were a lot of people who thought that was pretty funny, thought it was hilarious. And to me, I don't think I don't think grabbing anybody is funny, especially in the middle of a game. Whether I'm just an impassioned fan, I don't care. That's not okay. It's not all right behavior. And because the MLB is saying they went over the line of acceptable fan behavior, whether it's to punish these guys or to set a standard so that nobody thinks that this is okay in the future, I think it can be dual purpose in that respect. I don't know.
Um,
What are your thoughts on it?
I like I said, I can see where they're coming, why they did it, because You do, like you said, you want to set an example. You want to let everyone know this is not acceptable. Again, maybe I would have done it for a season and have zero tolerance if you got any type of incident, even if it's not, impacting or interfering in a play. If there's any type of incident with you guys in that stadium, you're gone. You're gone indefinitely. I'm curious if legally, if they're going to fight this. I mean, if we have any lawyers who listens to the show or know, like, I'm just curious if these guys have a leg, because we live in such a litigious society, Amy. I'm just curious if they would fight back and say you can't do this, even though
Why?
they're a private organization. They can do whatever they want. Like, I'm curious. Do you know of any Doyer fan? There was that guy who decided to do like the 100-yard dash at Dodger Stadium. Like, those guys who go on the field, aren't they technically banned?
Yes. I don't know the MLB or the Dodgers org's position on that, but I think that also falls in line with my viewpoint. I don't like when fans do that. It delays the game. It potentially puts players, you get the crazy one, and it puts the players in harm's way. But it also it's selfish to me. And what if that person gets hurt running around the field? Like, it's very selfish to take that game that everybody has put money into, time and everything, because you want to run on the field. Like, how is that all right?
If we have anybody who works in Doyer security who listens to the show, watches the show, I would love to hear if those people who run on the field, because to my understanding, they do get arrested. I am curious if they have a lifetime ban on those people, or if it's banned for a certain period of time, and how do they enforce that? Because I mean, is there someone certain job with holding photos and looking at cameras and
Mm.
being like, "Hey, he's here," and I'm really curious how you enforce that. That's why I was asking you, like, if these guys all of a sudden grow beards and go back into Yankee Stadium, who's going to sit there and say, "Hey, these guys aren't supposed to be here"? Like, how do you enforce that?
Well, and I think that's what it comes down for a lot of people, like, "Oh, this is a BS, thing. How are you gonna enforce it? Like, I can just get in." I think the point is, especially, I'm not gonna use these guys an example, but let's say somebody gets banned. If you're that person who likes to mouth off of like, "Oh, yeah, I got banned. Look, I'm back in here." Okay, well, cool. If I'm the person who, depending on my ethics, I might go say something. "Well, hey, that guy over there just told me that's him, and, he was banned." That's really the only way you're gonna get somebody out. But I think that is also, in my opinion, maybe the reason that they're doing an indefinite ban, because doing it for one season, that's not going to really have any impact, especially if there is no contrition from those fans, or if you're worried that the potential is there for them to do it again, or you just want to dissuade other people from doing it. Because what people know, that they could get arrested for running on the field, and every year, like, "Oh, well, it was worth the risk to go, propose to my girl." Bro, you just stopped the game for everybody. You're being selfish. Go propose to her in the pavilion. Like, stop.
Well,
You
this
can
is
tell
what
I feel very strongly about this. This
you
is
have some strong feelings, and this is where we come with our obligatory Seinfeld reference on the show, ladies and gentlemen. This reminds me of when Kramer got banned from Joe's fruit stand. I'm banned, and then he sent in Jerry, and then Jerry got banned, and then they had to send in George to get the fruit. So, I don't think these guys are, just because they're banned, are going to stop going to Yankee games. I'm curious if we ever hear about these guys again. But look, I see your point. I think you have valid points, Amy, as to why it had to be an indefinite ban. And I agree with
Would
your
you have
points.
been pissed if Mookie got hurt?
Oh yeah, especially if the Dodgers lost the World Series, because Mookie was hurt. Especially, I mean, you already had the unicorn was already hurt, right?
And you've got that potentially changes his career trajectory too.
Well,
He's
that's
already
true.
out.
Yeah. So I know you're of course, as always, the voice of reason on this show.
No, this is just where my, like, focus, like, let me just watch the game.
I appreciate everything that you do on this show. So for those of you, we are in our second season. So if you've listened to us long enough, she's the one that's always trying to hold me back and being like, "Be careful what you're saying. You don't know that." You can't say that. It's not true. She's a fact checker.
The internet is forever.
She is a fact checker. And even though Zuckerberg has decided we're not going to do any more fact checking, we do have fact checking on this show because truth matters to us on this show. Damn it. Harumph.
Harumph.
Amie, I can't believe this is because, again, baseball has to be year round, so we got to find things to talk about. But there's power rankings already, Amie, and we haven't even played one game in the 2025 season.
Which I think is ironic, not the power rankings, but every week we're like, oh my God, what are we going to talk about? It's going to be a short episode. And then we end up doing another fluffy episode that ends up being like an hour and a half. So, for whatever it's worth. MLB came out with their power rankings. The Dodgers are number 1, as they were last year. If you get a chance to check it out, it's kind of interesting, though, because you can see not only where each team is ranked, but where they were the previous year. So, some of them stayed in the same spot. The Phillies were previously ranked 2nd. They're there. The Yankees were ranked 5th last year. They're 3rd this year. Ironically enough, the White Sox were ranked 30th last year, and they are again 30th this year.
So. Oh, my poor friends on the south side of Chicago.
Oh, he just adjusted his mic. Everybody drink.
Wow. Too many drinking games on this show. Maybe that's the reason why people don't make it to the end of the episode. They're already just like hammered and they pass out. So
are there certain teams that you are curious about? I don't want to read through all 30. I think there's some interesting numbers in there, but any that you're curious about off the top of your head?
Well, I do think what's interesting is that the Yankees, I'm glad that you were able to go over where they were ranked the year before. The Yankees lost Juan Soto, and you would think that losing Juan Soto would really hurt your chances. And a lot of, not only just in this poll, but a lot of the stuff that I'm reading, a lot of people like the moves that the Yankees have made and feel like the Yankees are a better team. And one of the interesting things on there, so are the Yankees the highest ranked American team on that American League team on those power rankings, Amie?
Yeah, because they're coming in 3rd. Yep.
So let me ask you this. I feel that with a lot of the movement that happened with free agency, I think the American League has kind of taken a step back, and I think things are looking good for the Yankees to maybe come out of the American League and go back to the World Series again, because the Astros, I think they took a step back.
They're ranked 9th. They were previously 8th last year.
What is behind the Yankees? What is the second highest ranked American League team?
Oh God, because the next at least 3 are National League teams, because you've got the Mets 4th, Braves 5th, Padres 6th. Are the Orioles American League? I don't have them memorized.
The Orioles. Yeah. Okay.
Orioles are ranked 7th. They were previously 6th, so they took a step back from last year.
Yeah. So I think the Yankees, they have a good chance of coming out of the American League again. Look, I know we've talked about this on the show. I like what the Phillies did, getting that Luzardo. I think the Phillies are going to be competitive. You can't forget about the Bravos. The Bravos they were really decimated by injuries. Now, I know they lost Max Fried, but I expect the Bravos to be competitive.
They actually swapped with the Yankees. So the Braves were 3rd last year. They're 5th this year. And then the Yankees swapped with them. They're 3rd, previously 5th.
The Bravos intrigue me. Another team that intrigues me. I want to see what Juan Soto looks like in that Mets lineup. Playing the Metropolitans in the NLCS, they have some young players there that I'm curious to see if they do take the next step in their careers.
Are they going to re-sign Pete Alonso? That's up in the air. Kind of
we still have some big free. Alex Bregman still has not signed, and you brought up the key dates. It's almost looking like this is the same thing that we were happening last year. Where are the markets for these players?
I need them to lock down Kike like now.
Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna put a button in that Kike thing, because it's gonna lead us into our next topic. But do you have anything else that you want to say about the power rankings?
Not really. I would just say check it out. It's pretty interesting. Jim Bowden also threw out his grading for the offseason in the Athletic. You can look at the whole list. I just grabbed the National League just since that's kind of our guys. Obviously the Dodgers got an A. Colorado got a D, which I think might be up from last year. Ar- I'd have to check. Again, at the beginning of my notebook, I can find it. Arizona got an A minus, and that's kind of backs up what you already said in a previous episode. San Francisco got a B, and do you want to guess what San Diego got?
They got a C.
They got an F.
Wow. Right, man. The show pods are going through it right now. So if they don't get Sasaki, I'm going to be very concerned about our San Diegans. I love the city of San Diego. I love hanging out there. But I think those San Diego fans they're gonna be feeling it. If they lose out on Sasaki, especially what's going on right now with their ownership and the instability there.
I was just talking to one of my San Diego fan buddies at the brewery the other day, and it's sad to see them go through it. Like, it sucks.
I mean, well, did he give him an F because they haven't really signed anybody yet?
That's a really good question. I don't
Like, if they land Sasaki, is that still an F?
Do you think he's gonna go back and revise their report card? Or they're gonna go in and, like, turn that F into an A?
Yeah, I feel like maybe we're too early because the off season is still not done yet. I mean, what if they pull a rabbit out of their hat?
Let me see what he said about, like, give me a second to look it up, but
I'll let you vamp. I do think the Serpientes, that is another team, at least in the National League. I know we were talking about what's going on with the American League. In the National League, I had already mentioned I like what the Phillies did. I like what the Bravos did. But the Serpientes, I think, are a team to keep an eye on, especially with them adding Corbin Burns.
So he's giving them an F because they have signed no free agents. They have traded no one. And because of that, along with Seattle, they've been the most inactive team this winter after being two of the most aggressive teams in the past years, he said. And the biggest news has been their power struggle with ownership and their tight budget. And because they're listening to offers on Dylan Cease and potentially Luis Arias, that he's going to give them enough. So maybe Sasaki can, you can grade on a curve and that'll bring him back up.
Well, it's good to know that Jim Bowden listens to the show. Because basically Jim Bowden just wrote everything I've been saying on this show.
Oh, yes. I mean, yes.
Look, this is why you guys need to tell your friends to listen to this show, because everything we talk about in this show ends up in people's articles. That's all I'm saying, Amy.
I mean, it's not like baseball's cyclical and we all talk about the same things at all.
Again, why do you got to bring logic into everything? What is it with you and your common sense, damn it?
I gotta like bring down your ego just a little bit.
Oh, it's healthy. It's healthy. All right. Anything else on these MLB power rankings?
No, like you said, it is very soon to be putting them out there. So maybe we can just look at these as preliminary. I mean, I know we're going to see it all season long, especially with as prevalent as betting has gotten. So,
Exactly. And that's all. Power rankings to me are just like who's hot right now. The
hot list.
Yeah, they're the hot list. They don't mean anything. So it's good fodder. All right, I want to go back to your boy Kike, and this goes out to all the people in the unofficial Kike fan club. I'm curious if maybe a deal is already done, or they've been communicating with them, and the Dodgers have not announced anything. And the reason why I say that
is the hope.
And that's why I'm also curious if maybe this Roki thing, if things are done, and maybe we won't hear anything until the very end, until the 23rd. And the reason why I feel that way is, so the elephant in the room, ladies and gentlemen, for those of you who are not in California, Los Angeles is on fire. And I know that, look, this show, we have fun on this show, and we want to talk baseball, but I do think this is something that we can't ignore, and we do need to address. And that is, what's happening right now to the city of Los Angeles. I've lived in California all my life, and I have never, I say this to people who live outside of California, I have never seen what's happening to the whole region ever in my life. The amount of fires going on simultaneously in such a widespread area, to me, is quite frightening, Amy. I
Mhm.
don't know how you. And so we saw a football game get moved to Arizona. We saw basketball games canceled. We saw a lot of events being canceled out of, respect and dealing with the crisis that's going on right now.
As well
So
as necessity to keep freeways and thoroughfares open for those who do need to evacuate, because at any given point, we need to be able to have that ingress and egress out.
so that's why I kind of wonder if the Dodgers do have news, if they're going to sit on it out of respect
Mhm.
on what's going on, because in the grand scheme of things, it's just not important compared to what's going on right now. And I will say this, uh, I am not affected. Amy is not affected in terms of our us and in our homes. But I know, Amy, you know somebody that has been impacted by this, and I know they're saying that there's probably everyone in Los Angeles is going to know somebody that is impacted by this, and it is just it's heartbreaking. It absolutely is heartbreaking.
Like you said, it's been a very scary week, even being in an area where I am relatively safe, closer to the water. Um, I think one of the biggest things is having that grief, even if it's not happening to me directly, but feeling the loss that other people are going through right now, and just what's happening to our city. And I work with at my day job, I work with people all across the US and Canada. And the question that I keep getting the most is, well, how could this happen? Like, why does it why how could you have fires this big? And it's like, what people don't understand is we have the Santa Ana wind. So anybody who, has ever been to LA or lived down here, we're familiar with it. Those winds are gnarly. You get one spark, the wind knocks down a tree, hits a power line, that sparks and starts a fire. It is literally just blowing those sparks in the wind. And, just with the conditions as they are, brush is catching fire. It's just houses, as we're seeing. The devastation it's 40,000 acres so far, probably more than 40,000 at the time that we're talking about this. Over 100,000 evacuated at any given point in time. Some of the numbers coming in, 12,200 structures have been destroyed. They've been burning since January 7th on Monday. And shout out to the Watch Duty app. It is a 501c. They have really organized all the information so that people can go on. If you're not impacted by the fire directly, check on your loved ones. That's what I did all week. I was babysitting that app because my friend was kind of on the border of potentially being evacuated or not. And it was just making sure she was safe while she was going through her emotions of being so close, packing a go bag. What do you take with you? What do you leave? And, it's been a really scary week. So just to see LA come together to support each other has been amazing, amidst the criticism and some of the negative comments outside of California, which is just, it's a bummer that people feel the need to kind of mouth off on social media. But seeing the city come together for each other in the community has been uplifting in a time where things have just been pretty scary.
Two things I want to follow up on what you said. You're absolutely right. It is so inspiring to see how people have come together. My wife and I volunteered at a fire station last week, and we were donating supplies and help gathering supplies. And it's gotten to the point where people they're not accepting donations anymore because there's just no space. They don't have anywhere to store these things. And so the fact that people were willing to help and just did not even hesitate immediately, it really restored my faith in humanity because
You're gonna
of
make
the
me tear up right now.
because of the other thing that you said, Amy. I came this close to just giving up on social media. Uh, the misinformation about the fires, in particular on Twitter,
Mhm.
was really gross. It was really gross to the point where I kept hearing your voice in my head, Amy. You have told me many times, stay off of For You, Juan. Just stick on the people you're following. You have no business being on For You. And I made the mistake because I was
Oh
trying to get
no.
information.
Mhm.
I have a lot of friends who live in Los Angeles, and I also like, how can I help? And that classic Mr. Rogers saying, right? In these
Mhm.
situations, look for the helpers, right? And just to see how just how there's no other way that I can say it, Amy, other than it was just gross. And at
Mhm.
this point, I was just like, I don't need social media anymore. I'm done with it. I I don't need it. But like I said, being volunteering and just seeing how many people were just willing to step up to see the taco trucks,
Mhm.
Villa's Tacos out there feeding first responders. Another taco truck that I want to throw. I mean, Teddy's Red Tacos was doing the same thing. Tacos Los Cholos was doing the same thing, feeding the firefighters and everybody else. Gracias Señor is a taco truck that is based out of Pacific Palisades,
Mm.
and they were in the news actually before what happened with the fire because they parked in front of a Ralph's, and the Ralph's did an injunction to prevent them from parking in front of there because it was interfering with Ralph's business. So they were taking this poor guy to court who's trying to just make a living, making food. And so the guy ended up moving. Right, he moved to a different location, and if anybody knows anything about these mobile food trucks, location is everything when it comes to their business. If they're in a bad location, it's that they're not going to make money. So this poor guy was forced to move. Why come when these fires happen? He drove his truck straight, and he's been doing it 5 days straight, going to where the headquarters, where they're stationed, where the first responders are, and he's feeding all of them. So I just want to
Even
call out.
just all of the firefighters that are coming in
Yeah,
across state lines. You've got firefighters coming in from Mexico. Everybody just digging in, and food trucks that are donating to these people who are exhausted.
absolutely. And look, there is going to be a time where we need to assess what went wrong and be critical and fix it so it doesn't happen again. But right now, I think the focus is just to help.
Mhm.
And I think that, so the fact that the Dodgers in a couple of, well, I don't, I think it was 8 other teams in
12.
Los Angeles. Oh, it was 12 teams in Los
Mhm.
Angeles, raised $8 million. And I know my compadre was very quick to tell me, he was like, Taylor Swift gave 10. And I was just like, I get it. I see the point that you're making, but they could have not given anything. They
Well, and
could.
that's the argument, because it's so interesting to me that people are everyday people. Social media is, criticizing what people are donating, because it's not, I feel like the misconception, not to defend organizations, but they still have an organization to run. They have payroll to make, they have things to pay. So it's not like they're just sitting around with this cash of extra cash. It's, that stuff is allotted places, and they are still donating on top of that. Is that to say that they could not have given more? Sure, but that's not really our business. They are they are donating, and they are not obligated to do that. So any donation, I think, is, I mean, the fact that Fanatics is distributing 3 million worth of merchandise, and one of my friends pointed out, like, just don't slide into home and you should be fine.
Well, I do want to talk about that, Amy, because I did see the criticism immediately on Fanatics,
Mhm.
where people were like, "Why do you have to sell the shirts? Why can't you just make the donation, directly?"
I have
And
some thoughts on that, so I wanna hear yours first.
oh, okay, and part of me was just like, I was like, okay, I see what you're saying, but at the same time, from my understanding, and you correct me if I'm wrong, all the proceeds from those
Mhm.
shirt sales, the LA Strong shirt sales, is going to the Red Cross.
Correct.
So the more shirts they sell, the more money they are raising for the Red Cross.
Correct.
And for like for me, it's like, yeah, you buy that shirt, okay, you're getting a shirt out of it, but really what you're doing is you're making a donation to the Red Cross. Now, I say this being that I bought 3. I bought one for each member of my family, but it's exactly what you just said, Amie. I'm just like, wait, isn't this supposed to be a good thing? Why do I understand having doubts and being, because I know the Red Cross doesn't have the greatest reputation. There have been certain examples where things have not gone right with them, and so I do I understand the hesitation, but really shouldn't the focus be that initial reaction to help
Mhm.
as opposed to criticize?
I think so, and you've got the people that are like, "Well, the money that they're spending on the shirts, they could also be turning that around and just donating that plus the money that people would have paid." Yeah, they could. We also don't know what they're paying for shirts, what they get them at cost for, etcetera, but my argument is for all the people who maybe wouldn't have donated otherwise, because there are a lot of people who sit on the sidelines, and no judgment if maybe you don't have the money to donate. Maybe, for whatever reason, you're like, "I'm not doing that." If that shirt is the driving force to get another 25 bucks in the pool to help people, what what's the harm? And if it gives some kind of unity because you bought 3, you guys are going to have your shirts. Does that give you some kind of pride wearing that as we all come together? Like I said, whether you've been impacted directly or you're helping support family members, or it just sucks to be an Angelino and see this happening and see whole cities almost disappear when they do the flyovers and you see almost nothing left of like areas of Altadena, like it, it's it's horrific. So to me, it's like you're getting the people who might not have otherwise donated.
No, I think that's a fair point. I also think it is just one of those things. So when I went on the site, guess what the 2 most popular choices were? It was the
The
Dodger
Dodgers
one.
and the Lakers.
Yeah, the Dodgers and the Lakers one were the most popular choices. But I do feel, look, at the same time, I know that people have issues with the company of Fanatics in itself, and maybe that's why there's hesitation to do this, because you don't want to deal with Fanatics. I also feel like there are some people maybe that are grossed out a little bit of the commercialism of it, but I do feel like maybe that's the way you need to look at it. It's not necessarily commercial. You're making a donation to the Red Cross, and you're gonna have those doubters that go, "Well, how do I know that my money's going to the Red Cross?"
You don't. You have to
Exactly.
hope, but
Yeah.
that's with anything. You could donate directly to any entity and not know that it's going to go there. That I mean, I think that's where everybody just has to determine what is the way that you wanna go. For some people, maybe they want that shirt, and that's something that they would want to show solidarity regardless of what their complaint is with Fanatics, but maybe they can't even afford to do that. Like, it just there's so many factors that go into this where it's like, okay, it's kinda like how I approach social media. If I don't like it, I'm just gonna scroll by it. If you don't like it, if you don't agree to it, don't donate it to it. Don't leave it. Move on to the next thing. You don't have to do it, but they're not the only company that I've seen doing this. Sometimes I'll wear like wristbands from a company called, I think it's Zox. They have a California wristband right now that has, all of the emblems. There's, I think, a bear hugging the California flag, poppies on it. And then the other side says, something like, I love California. Their bracelets are $10. All of the proceeds are going to donate to a cause. Everybody's doing it in some way, shape, or form, and maybe that's the only way that that company can do it. I don't know, but they're still having to buy product and provide it, and if you don't agree with it, just don't buy it. Don't donate.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things, ladies and gentlemen. In the end, yeah, I guess you do whatever you need to do in any way that you can help. I think in the end is appreciated, but it was just very interesting to see not only what the role is, like this is our baseball team, right? We're talking about them, but what role do they have in the community, especially what role do they have in a time of crisis like this? To see fires approaching, historical, places, like when the fire was getting close to the Hollywood Bowl, I'm thinking to myself, oh my gosh, what happens if we lost the Hollywood Bowl? Could you imagine if those fires got in the ravine if they got close to Dodger Stadium, how people would be panicking.
That would be awful. Any of this is awful. And I think so. It's interesting what you brought up a moment ago, just people kind of pointing out like this is not enough, whatever. We've got a couple Dodgers and former Dodgers that have been, donating themselves. Freddie and Chelsea Freeman donated $100,000 to the Los Angeles Fire Department Foundation, the Pasadena Fire Department, and the Salvation Army. You've got Chris Taylor with his CT3 Foundation. They donated again to the Los Angeles Fire Department Foundation, and they're matching up to $5,000 in donations. You've got the Justin Turner Foundation, the LA Dream Center, where they're working on donations and they're matching up to $100,000. So you've got all of these people that I think some of it's powerless too, like powerlessness, like whether you're impacted or not, or somebody who is, or you're just sad that this is happening and we have no control over it. And these people are on the front lines having to fight something that is so insurmountable. My friend had, mentioned that there's a GoFundMe for somebody that she knows in her family where their house burned down. And that person doesn't want to accept donations, except they don't have a house. And it's all of these things where it's like, sometimes we just feel powerless and we can't do anything. So sometimes being able to just donate to somebody's GoFundMe is all that we can do to help feel like we contributed. So I think there's lots of ways that we can help. Find what fits for you. If it's just, sending your support, your thoughts and prayers, your tots and taters, whatever. I mean, we all deal with scary situations in different ways.
And there is something about what you said, the symbolism of having something like that that maybe speaks to unity. When you saw the Rams players, I mean, the Dodger players that went to that game were all wearing LA Fire Department hats. And there is something, even though it may feel commercial, but there is something to when you see that kind of unity that it speaks of support and maybe reminds you of like, okay, we got to help, we got to find a way to do it. So,
and is that a mindset? And that's not a question to you. Like, so what if it's commercial? If that's how we all feel connected to each other right now in a time that is very disconnecting. I don't really watch football, but I happened to be out last night working on my notes at the brewery and the game came on, and just seeing the unity and the speeches that were given, prior to the game, it's indicative of, the unity that's going on around the state. And it's nice to see people coming together. Like you said, places are filling up with donations quickly. People are offering their Airbnb for people to stay in. Like it's a sad, scary time, but it's also a time to see people come together and rise up, and hopefully everybody gets the help that they need.
Yeah, so we hope that none of our listeners or viewers were impacted by this. If you were, I don't know what to say to you. I can't imagine what you're going through. On this show, like I said, we try to have a good time. We try to distract you from the realities of the world, so to speak. But we just wanted to address
Sometimes
it.
they creep in.
Yeah, we just wanted to address it. We know what's going out there, and I know it may seem trivial that we're talking about the Dodgers when real stuff is happening out in the world, but we hope that we can give you some sort of comfort. And for those that have been volunteering and for those that have been donating, thank you very much. Amie, anything else before we wrap things up?
No, just stay safe, everybody.
That's right. So that's going to do it for this episode. So for those of you that have been listening to us on the audio portion, please make sure you're subscribed to the podcast. Rate us, write us a review. Help spread the word. Tell other people about the party. Tell them to come join the party. If you are watching us on YouTube, make sure you're subscribed to our YouTube channel. Hit that notification button. Give us a thumbs up. Leave us comments on anything that we discussed today. And most importantly, make sure you're following us on social media, on X at BB Shangri-La, on Instagram, YouTube, and Twitch at Baseball Shangri-La. She is Amie Cuevas. I am Juan Ramirez. Nos despedimos con un beso. Amie, say goodbye to the people.
Goodbye, people.